Alright guys, Scrappy here again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. And after getting into all sorts of drama and beef over the last couple of weeks, Scrappy is at it again, calling out Doug Censor for some of his search and destroy plays over the last couple of seasons, saying that when he briefly teamed with Doug back in Vanguard, he basically taught him how to play the game the way that he presently does, but he can't fix that terrible search and destroy, and also talk about the dumbest pro in the CDL. It was a big talking point the other day between Zoomer and Pred and others, and well, they've come up with some answers, but Scrappy's answer is pretty clear cut. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Krim also mentions, by the way, here he is at Kota with his driving coach. He was saying that his car only had 420 horsepower. The other guys had 510, so that's why he was getting cooked here on the straight. But he did also say the intention will be for when he actually does his racing series. I think there's 7 rounds of his Porsche North American Cup that he's doing this season. That it's going to be streamed on YouTube, but he's also going to try and get like a Twitch POV of his like in-person situation, so that'd be really cool. Hopefully he can manage to pull that stuff up. This was also going around that a few of you guys found interesting, and for good reason, on Hicksy, right? So former Toronto Ultra player, won the Major 3 last season, well, won it with them, right? Obviously it was a big part of the reason why. You've now got Envoy in the team, and we saw the other day Envoy had a bit of a rough series. Sure, one-off, and I expect Envoy to be better than Hicksy overall over the course of this, but it was still interesting to see how things go when Envoy dropped a stinker. They got pretty much slammed. So Hicksy's like, look, any chair recommendations? You know, not Herman Miller though. I've not got, you know, the bread like that. So Censor, I don't know if he didn't read this or whatever, but he says Herman Miller Embody or whatever. He's like, get this one, and Hicksy's like, look, the time of giving, Doug, you feeling generous? And he didn't reply. So, you know, worth a try from Hicksy, but didn't really pay off on that one. And then we get Scrappy, right? So you spent 10k on 3 golf clubs. So I don't really know if he did. I don't think golf clubs are that expensive, even if you get them like professionally fitted. I don't know, I'm sure the ones the pros use are like insane, and like probably a good driver's easily like 600 quid or something. But still, this seems pretty excessive. But whatever, Hicksy got some new clubs recently. I think you can get the Herman. You spend more on a car than my net worth, bro. Chill out. So then we got people want, okay, like surely Hicksy can maybe afford this Herman Miller chair. He obviously won that event last season, made a fair bit of prize money on Toronto. You'd have thought he got paid a fair few bucks as well. So Jake Hell comes out with earnings by year, and you know, last year apparently Hicksy earned 230 grand in prize earnings. Of course, that doesn't include salary, but you wouldn't imagine that would have been that much because he came from the challengers team up to the main team. So could have well have been on a minimum, but we don't really know. And as Hicksy says, class, can't wait to find that money someday. So this is, well, people thought, wow, is he not getting paid the money? When's this money arriving? And this is also a question that I never really fully know. How long does it take for the money to turn up in the bank account? Because I guess, you know, part of it goes to the team, and the team will take a cut of the, well, some teams take a cut of the prize earnings, which I know people get annoyed about, but at the end of the day, these teams struggle to make money as it is. So I get that they have probably some policy on what cut they're going to take of the prize earnings. Then some of it gets to the players. But then there's taxes, you know, and they're based in Toronto, so that isn't exactly not much. So I imagine that might be what happened here. I don't think that Hicksy wouldn't have been paid this yet, or maybe, you know, we've seen drama recently about London or now the Ravens in Carolina, but, you know, we had Dominate and others saying that they owe those guys, they owe those players a fair bit of money. So I don't know if it's a similar situation here with Toronto. I think more of what he's probably saying is that, well, yeah, 230k sounds nice on paper, but once the org takes their cut, once the taxman takes his cut, it ain't looking anywhere near quite like this. And I think it was Clay a couple of years ago maybe that tweeted out when they won the World Championship in 2020, because I think that was $1.5 million for first place that year, so 300k each. But of the 300k, Clay got maybe 187 or something in his account, something like that anyway, I don't really know. But it's always a talking point, and this is why Krim has always said, let's make sure we do the World Championship in Texas, because then we'd have to pay tax in it, which I totally get. Now this also was interesting going around on how these 3 players are performing so far. It's been a big talking point of the season, the new flex players on the respective teams. Now Toronto, they've still got Scrappy and Insight, but apart from that, Kenny's gone to OpTic, Sib has gone to Subliners, and then Drazah's gone to FaZe. So far, Kenny's performing the best. I think there's no doubt about it. But, you know, OpTic are 3-1, FaZe are 3-0, New York are 3-0. Sib has a 0.89. I think he's still getting comfortable. But it's definitely interesting to watch Sib's progress, right? Because if Sib has a bit of a hard time this season performing, maybe you could argue even statistically as Priestahh did. There's questions about Skyz. I mean, there was always questions about Skyz when he was teaming with Awakening. Like, oh, why Skyz and Wake, whenever they team together, only one of them ever goes off at one time. So we'll see how that goes. I still think it's really early days. And sure, Sib mechanically is an upgrade on Priestahh. And I do expect him to have more takeover, very impressive series. But still, you know, it's a big storyline. And Drazah as well, a 1 flat. To be honest, that's all you need from Drazah. That's all you expected from Drazah. But it's kind of the same story for Kenny, really. Like, you don't, like, OpTic don't need Kenny necessarily to be popping off. But he has been, and that's been super valuable for those guys. There's also these stats as well overall, that actually OpTic and FaZe are tied pretty much for the highest overall team KD at the moment. So just to kind of show this, Minnesota Rocker, by the way, at the bottom, you guys can see a 0.88 team KD, Ravens at a 0.92, Thieves just above Legion, Boston as well. So Boston are kind of like, given that they're 1 in 3, they're not too bad overall, but most teams are negative here, even up to Gorillas and Surge. They only have a 0.97 team KD. Then Ultra slightly positive, Subliners are slightly more so, and then you have 3 teams that have kind of been cooking, right? But as we said earlier today, Heretics, they've played Vegas, Ravens, and Rocker. So that's not quite the same opponents that FaZe have had. You know, FaZe have played what? They played Boston, Surge, and Thieves. So that's a pretty decent set of games. OpTic, of course, though, have played 4 games, and you know, they have the highest overall team KD so far. So 1.14 OpTic are averaging between their players. Probably boosted a fair bit, you can't lie, by that Raven series where they absolutely stat padded into oblivion. But look, it worked out. Of course, a question whether they can keep this up. I wonder how similar this OpTic team will end the season to what Thieves had before. Because when Kenny was on Thieves, and he was, you know, he wasn't setting the pace necessarily or deciding how the team played, but Kenny learned a lot from that Thieves scenario. You guys probably remember at the end of Vanguard when they won everything Thieves, and they were the best team in the game by far. Basically, their entire team had a 1.05. It was Envoy had a 1.05, Kenny had a 1.05, OpTic had a 1.05, Drazah, pretty much that was it. It was like every player was between a 1.05 and a 1.1. That was their team strategy, and that worked super well for Thieves at the end of the season. No other team had anything quite like that, really. And then we see the OpTic result the other day where they all have 45 kills. Like they had 46, 46, 46, 45, something like that. Different KDs. But, and different games require different advantages, right? Certain games, like last year Subliners, they didn't have the Thief situation, but they had HyDra just dropping a 1.3. So every year, different teams are going to have different philosophies, but I wonder which way OpTic are going to go on this. Are they going to be a team that tries to have all of their players equally contributing, and is that the best way to play this game, as maybe it was in Vanguard? Or is the best way to play the game to have Pred absolutely cook, and Dashy as well, and then the other guys fill the gaps and have, you know, less KD and less damage? I guess we'll see what the preference is of the teams, but I always find it kind of fascinating that some teams definitely have different philosophies on this than others. But speaking of, I guess, playing philosophies, Scrappy had a few words to say on this between himself and Censor the other day during the Vanguard season, to be fair, because during Vanguard, he was only a Challengers player, technically, Scrappy. He was cooking in Challengers, sure, but at that point, he hadn't yet been brought up to the Toronto Ultra starting team. He was subbed in, I think, for 1 game they had to play at some point in that season when, you know, I think someone, maybe Insight, had to sub out. They put Scrappy in for a day, but then, of course, after that year, Scrappy came in full time. So they were talking about this the other day, the pros. Who's the dumbest pro? What's the top 5 list? Dashy said that TJ Halley's definitely going to be up there. Shotzzy managed to get away with catching a stray in this one because they were kind of roasting a Scrappy and saying that he's got to be top 5 dumbest players. Scrappy, though, disagrees and says that actually if you gave him a general knowledge test, he'd be kind of cooking. Like, he'd definitely be up there, one of the smartest pros. He reckons. I'd like to see it, but I guess stay tuned. He reckons, though, there's one clear number 1 player. And also talks about the Doug Censor Martin situation.
Bro, I team with Doug, bro. I literally team with Doug in Vanguard, right? For like, I think 1 day. I don't even know if we got through the day, but it was 1 day. The first scrim, I literally hop on time on Berlin P4, literally Berlin P4, and the whole team disperses, bro, away from the time. And I'm like, no. I'm like, no. All of you sit in the time, okay? I'm gonna be the motherfucker to go rogue, and I'm gonna go get a piece, all right? And I was like, never again do that in your life. In your life. Okay? And ever since then, bro, this guy's been soaking, bro. This guy's taking people like last map and shit. The S&Ds, though, I can't really help the S&Ds. They just ass.
Who's the dumbest pro in the league? Street saying you top 5, bro. I'm not top 5. There's no way. I'm actually like pretty smart. We went over this before, but like, if you put me in a classroom and like made me like, I would get like in just like a general knowledge test. Yeah, if you gave me a general knowledge test about the world, like I'd do pretty well. Your top 3? No, I'm not top 3. It's probably Ant. Ant is it's literally Ant, and then it drops to the bottom of the earth, bro.
So I guess we'll talk about the Doug thing first. I thought this is pretty funny that Scrap team with Doug for a day or something and, you know, wasn't happy with the way they played Hardpoint. Told Doug, look, Doug, you get the hill time. I'm going to run around. And apparently since that moment, Doug has now been the absolute hill demon, the objective demon and all this. I'm not sure I fully buy this from Scrappy just because I think Doug was kind of always that player. Sure, maybe on the one day that they played together in this particular scenario, it was a slightly different story. But you know, Doug's been an OBJ guy from really kind of the start of his career. He's always preferred to try and do that over, you know, playing for the kills necessarily. I think he's always kind of been the guy that's tried to value winning over kills. But maybe we've seen that especially so over the last couple of seasons. And was Scrappy a part of that? I'm not so sure. He also roasted their search and destroy, of course, it's pretty funny. But he said that basically thanks to him, Doug was then taking people map 5. But, you know, there's a difference between taking the map 5 and winning those map 5s, which didn't necessarily happen. And then you get screenshots like this from the other day where Doug goes 4-17, but has a fair chunk of hill time. You know, not like 3 minutes, but he has a fair chunk of hill time and they win the game. And then, of course, Doug was gassing about it. But what do you guys think should be the, you know, the dumbest pro rankings in the CDL? Because there's obviously a few candidates that come to mind, but as Scrappy says, it's pretty clear-cut who number 1 might potentially be. We've done Shotzzy most faded moments on the Breaking Point channel a while ago, maybe 4 months ago now. We are cooking up another Shotzzy faded moments part 2 because there's just too many that are, you know, every couple of days there's a new Shotzzy clip. They're like, okay, put that in the books, write that one down, and we'll come back to that when we come to make Shotzzy faded moments part 2. So, you know, maybe Scrappy's right about this, that there's Ant at the top and then you have to go way down to find the next dumbest pro. And look, some of these guys, they put all their IQ points into call IQ, you know, and there wasn't too many IQ points left over, and I totally get it. And people say, oh, well, at least thankfully they can play COD, or they're good in some respects, because, I mean, every time I think of Shotzzy faded moments, I always remember this one when Shotzzy was coming up to this junction here. He goes to turn left at this one at the light, and then he sees that there's like a barricade on one side of the road. He could still get round, I think they'd blocked off this part, but he could still get round it. But he decided that this wasn't working, so he basically just went the wrong way down this street, and I can't believe he still put this on Twitter. Actually, it's so funny. He goes this way and then he comes to the end, and these cars are thinking, what is this guy doing? And then he comes up to this new traffic pattern that he sees, like, oh yeah, fantastic, like I've nailed this one, right? It's obviously just some sort of new traffic pattern, and then he just rides it through and manages to escape with his license, it seems, still intact. So, you know, IRL pros, guys that have grown up playing video games their whole life, you know how it goes. But, yeah, some maybe more so than others. And maybe there's other examples in other teams. But I will say that series wins in Canada 2023, Shotzzy tops the list with the other FaZe guys. So, Shotzzy at 31 wins, Simp aBeZy still also at 31 wins. Dashy would be at 31, but of course he got dropped for a series, didn't he? So, you know, he didn't play one series in the early part of January, whatever it was, before they brought him back, and then Scum was brought back into the team. So, that, I guess, was the difference maker there. Hook, HyDra, Skyz. So lots of competition, really, to think about. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the IRL IQ is if you're finding COD and getting other results. So remember to tweet your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.